Hi again, boys and girls. Today in literacy we're going to do a little bit of reading and we're going to read a little bit more of the story The Twits. So, our objective today is to read and understand a novel text, and to be successful we're going to see if we can use our phonics to read words. We're going to see if we can use a range of different reading strategies to read words, maybe that are unfamiliar to us. We're going to see if we can find key words in the text that will help us to answer questions, and we're going to see if we can use evidence to support an answer. So, we're going to read the next part of the text, which is pages 53 to 55, and then afterwards we're going to come back here and answer some questions about the text.
Mr. and Mrs. Twit go off to buy guns. The next morning, when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket, not a single bird was sitting on either the monkey cage or the big dead tree. They were all perched happily on the roof of Mr. Twit's house. The roly-poly bird was up there as well, and the monkeys were in the cage, and the whole lot of them were hooting with laughter at Mr. Twit. "I'll wipe that silly laugh off your beaks," Mr. Twit screamed at the birds. "I'll get you next time, you filthy, feathery frumps. I'll wring your necks, the whole lot of you, and have you bubbling in a pot for bird pie before this day is out."
"How are you going to do that?" asked Mrs. Twit, who had come outside to see what all the noise was about. "I won't have you smearing sticky glue all over the roof of our house." Mr. Twit got very excited. "I've got a great idea," he cried. He didn't bother to keep his voice down, because he didn't think the monkeys could understand. "We'll go out into the town right away, and we'll buy a gun each," he shouted. "How's that?" "Brilliant!" cried Mrs. Twit, grinning and showing her long yellow teeth. "We'll buy those big shotguns that spray out 50 bullets or more with each bang." "Exactly," said Mr. Twit. "Lock up the house while I go, and make sure the monkeys are safely shut away." Mr. Twit went over to the monkey cage. "Attention!" he barked in a fearsome monkey trainer's voice. "Upside down, all of you, and go and jump to it. One on top of the other. Quick! Get on with it, or you'll feel Mrs. Twit stick across your backsides." Obediently, the poor monkeys stood on their hands and clambered one on top of the other, with Mugglewump at the top and Mugglewump at the bottom and the smallest child at the very top. "Now stay there till we come back," Mr. Twit ordered. "Don't you dare move, and don't overbalance. When we return in 2 or 3 hours' time, I shall expect to find you all in exactly the same position as you are now. You understand?" With that, Mr. Twit marched away. Mrs. Twit went with him, and the monkeys were left alone with the birds. So on the screen I've got an extract from the text that we've just read together, and I've got some questions hidden underneath this grey bar here. So I'm going to show you the questions, I'm going to give you some time to see if you can find the answer using some evidence to back up what you say, and then we'll see if we can get the right answer together. So the first one, it's a multiple choice question, so there's 4 answers here and one of them is correct. Which word best describes Mr. Twit's feelings? Have a look in the text, have a look at those words, and see if you can work out which one means the one that Mr. Twit is feeling. Okay, what I would do with this question is I would look at the choices. I've got furious, devastated, delighted, and miserable. Now I know that delighted means very, very happy. I know that miserable means very, very sad. So if I think about, is Mr. Twit really happy or really sad? From what he said, I don't think he's either of those things. So then I've got furious and devastated. Do you know what those words mean? Furious, if someone's furious, it means they're so angry. If they're devastated, it means they're so upset about something that's happened. Now, already I'm thinking, devastated and miserable both have a very similar meaning. So I don't think it's going to be either of those, because you could argue that if it was one, it would be the other as well. So I'm going to ignore those two, and I'm going to see if he's furious or if he's delighted. It says, "I'll get you next time, you filthy, feathery frumps." Well, that's hard to say. Now, if you're saying that, I don't think you sound delighted, don't sound really happy, do you? So I think the answer's got to be furious, and that's the one that I would be ticking. Let's look at the next question. How can you tell that Mr. Twit is cross? Pause the video and see if you can find some evidence that shows that Mr. Twit is cross. There's lots of things that you could say to show that Mr. Twit is cross, but I would say the fact he's screaming at the birds shows that he's quite cross. He says, "I'll wring your necks," which means put your hands around the neck, and obviously that's not something you're going to do if you're not cross. and he says that he'll have them bubbling in a pot for the bird pie before this day is out. That's quite threatening, isn't it? So I think that shows that Mr. Twit's quite cross as well. Okay. For your task today, I'd like you to go back to DB Primary. I'd like you to download the text and the questions which I've put up there for you. And remember, when you're answering the questions, don't forget to use evidence from the text to support your answers. When you finish the questions, come back here and we can write our open together. So today your objective was to read and understand a novel text. Thinking about your next step, about what you can do next time to make your learning better. Did you use your phonics to read words? Hopefully if you did, you can move on to the next step, which is using a range of strategies to read. So when you're finding a word that you're not familiar with, that you think, oh, that's a bit strange, and you've tried phonics and it doesn't work, maybe you could read the whole sentence and see, well, this word would make sense and it kind of looks like it could be that word, so then put that word in. Find key words in the text. That's going to help you to answer any questions, and then to use evidence to support an answer. Sometimes what I see is people sort of using their common sense and guessing rather than actually providing evidence to support their answer. So that's maybe something you might need to do next time to make sure that you continue your learning in a good way. Okay? Well, hopefully you enjoyed that part of the story. Tomorrow we're going to read a little bit more of the Twits, and then we're going to do a task together. And by the end of the week, hopefully we'll have heard the whole story.